Defy Bloods is the latest joint from Spike Lee, and it tells the story of four African American Vietnam veterans who go back to Vietnam to find the remains of their dead squad leader, played by Chadwick Boseman, and they also go on a treasure hunt to find buried treasure they buried while serving in the war. So, Defy Bloods premiered a few weeks back on Netflix, and I know this review is kinda late because I was kinda supposed to have this review out that same weekend it came out, but alas, I've been really busy lately. It's kind of a long story, but anyway, here's my review. Better late than never. Yes, I did watch Defy Bloods the same weekend. It did premiere on Netflix. I watched it a day after it came out, and I'll explain later the reason as to why this review is intentionally late. Now let's start with the positives. First of all, what you've been hearing about the film is true. Delroy Lindo gives the best performance in the entire movie, hands down. His character was easily the most fleshed out of all the characters in the movie because he was the one character who you knew the most, and his performance was absolutely amazing. And if the Academy does not nominate him for Best Actor next year, I'm gonna be really upset because so far in 2020, I barely seen any movies this year because of the pandemic, but so far, Delroy Lindo's performance in this film is the best performance I've seen all year in any movie. And from a technical standpoint, the film is pretty unique and pretty well made because when the movie shows the flashbacks of the characters fighting in the Vietnam War, the aspect ratio cuts down to 1.33, which is basically a square to capture that old school feeling. And when the movie cuts back to present day, it jumps back to widescreen, and I thought that was pretty unique of Spike Lee to do that with this movie. And also, at the very beginning of the movie, it showcases archival footage of the Vietnam War as well as what happened during that time period. Like, for example, the Kent State shooting and the announcement that Nixon would resign as president because of Watergate. But I will say this, without going into spoilers, there was one shot in particular that left me disturbed and sick to my stomach. It was a shot of a toddler, and it was so hard to watch. So, this is my warning to you guys. If you guys have not seen the movie yet, but are planning on to watch it soon, if any of you guys are very sensitive when it comes to disturbing realistic imagery, be very cautious when it comes to that sequence, because when it hits you, it will hit you. Positives, what else should I say? Unfortunately, that might be it. So, do you guys remember earlier when I said there was a reason why I decided to have this review up late? The reason as to why is because my opinion on Defy Bloods has been changing drastically ever since I watched it a few weeks back. Unfortunately, guys, this is going to sound extremely unpopular. I know some of you guys might not agree with me on this. I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for this, but unfortunately, I wasn't a fan of this movie. I'm sorry. I couldn't get into it. One of the biggest issues I had with Defy Bloods was easily the story. I mean, sure, the concept was pretty interesting. 4 Vietnam veterans going back to Vietnam to find the remains of their fallen squad leader, as well as going on a treasure hunt to find buried treasure. That's a great, original, and fresh concept. Unfortunately, the story was too messy, and it just didn't feel consistent. Now, like I said earlier, with the exclusion of Delroy Lindo's character, I did not give a single crap about any of the characters in this movie. They just weren't interesting, and the writing was really lacking with their development. We barely knew anything about who they are and what their sole purpose of them as characters are. Now, Spike Lee is also a filmmaker who gets pretty political when it comes to his movies. I think most of his movies have political messages in them, and with this one in particular, I understood what he was trying to say because technically it is an anti-war movie, but the message in this movie was pretty messy because it's anti-war and then all of a sudden it becomes anti-Trump and it just didn't work. But guys, I'm being completely honest when I say I really wanted to love Da 5 Bloods. I'm being 100% serious. I wanted to love this movie because Spike Lee is actually one of my favorite filmmakers working right now and probably of all time. I have loved most of the movies that he has directed, like Do the Right Thing, Malcolm X, Black Klansman. I think those movies are terrific. But sadly, with Da 5 Bloods, every filmmaker has a weak link, and unfortunately to me, this is it. I give Da 5 Bloods a C+. And I don't know if this was intentional or not, but I noticed that the movie came out shortly after George Floyd's murder, and it premiered on Netflix during the Black Lives Matter protesting and rioting that happened, and it kind of is still happening a little bit. And it's ironic because the movie does show a little bit of the Black Lives Matter movement, like, near the end, and I don't know if that was intentional of Spike Lee or not, but that was kind of clever. So, if you guys have seen Da 5 Bloods, what are your thoughts on it? Or, what is your favorite Spike Lee film of all time? Mine is Do the Right Thing. It is such a phenomenal movie, and if you guys have not seen it, I highly recommend it. Whatever it is, just leave it in the comments below. And if you want to see more of my videos, just be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more great content.